Hey, Staircase fans, this is your favorite ministry culture podcast. We are here with a quick bonus episode. If you listened to our last episode, we were talking all about real estate and yes, in God's backyard, and can churches solve affordable housing? And we didn't even mention the real estate that so many churches across this country already own, which
McDonald's.
is parsonages.
Oh. Dang it, I was right.
That so many churches own parsonages, houses where their pastors live. And so wanted to talk about that with the guys because both David and Sam have lived in a parsonage before, and I lived in a house that was rented out by our church. So we all have had great experiences getting to live in real estate owned by the church. So I just wanted to hear from you guys. What was it like growing up in a parsonage, David, where you were right next door to the church all the time? Was that extra pressure when you were already a PK, pastor's kid?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'll give context. So I lived in a couple different housing styles. One, my parents had a housing allowance, so we had our own home. But the one that was the majority of my childhood was in a parsonage. That's a fancy word we don't use anymore.
Because the new church plants don't own them.
Yeah, exactly. So the parsonage was probably 50 feet from the door to the church.
Right across the parking lot.
Right across the parking lot. My room was facing the main door that people used, so I knew exactly when people were coming or going. It was built basically the same time as the church, and its entire history has been and still is the parsonage for that church.
It's also like in the middle of the neighborhood, so it's not like it's just like a church and a house in the middle of nowhere. It like makes sense with the rest of the neighborhood. Yeah,
it looks like any other. Like, so I've seen parsonages that like are architecturally the same as the church. Yeah. Right, so it'll be the same color of brick or whatever. It felt like they built the church and they're like, well, got to throw the pastor somewhere, so let's put that up right there. But yeah, it's right there in the middle of town. And it was always, I loved it. I think my sisters and my parents didn't like it as much. But there was also pros to it, right? So like, oh, if the bathroom was occupied, I could walk across the street to go to the restroom. But I remember
the
church
like was your number 2 restroom.
Exactly. Hey, I remember like my mom would like sometimes use the fridge over there if we had like a big Christmas dinner, or
True.
I had my birthday party in the basement. We would play I had a great parking lot to play in.
Yeah.
So I loved it as a kid, and then I have also lived in a parsonage as an adult. And then also had a housing allowance as an adult. As a parsonage, as an adult is also, I liked it. The difference was this was a house that the church had bought probably 20 years ago. So it was in the middle of a neighborhood. It was like a 15-minute drive from the church to the thing. And that's a growing trend in a way. If a church does have a parsonage, I would say it seems more likely that it is not on the main church grounds. Currently, my dad is in a manse. My mom and dad are in a manse.
I don't know what that is.
That is the Presbyterian word for parsonage.
Oh.
Why do they have their own word?
There's also a vicarage, a rectory, a presbytery, a clergy house. The Baptist
clergy house.
The Baptist had one. A pastoral.
The brother house.
Oh, the best. So my parents are currently in a manse, and this is the closest parsonage I've ever seen in my life.
It's even closer than the one you grew up in.
Oh, boys, it is. You could realistically, if you open the window in my parents' bedroom, you could extend. You'd have to extend your whole body, basically. Like you'd have to have your waist, like your legs could still meet in the house, but you could touch the wall of the church.
That's great. What What did David say? If I could just be a bird in the rafters of your house or something. Like, that's all
Amen.
if I could just.
Joshua lingered in the tent of meeting.
And then I would say I'm in a because there's like a deanery, and so there's different words for housing provided. So I would say I am still in a parsonage of sense.
Yeah, you are. You are very much in a on-campus.
This would be the worst parsonage yet.
Yeah.
Love it to pieces, but of all of the housing proximity to work, it is the best and worst. You might be able to hear in the background people screaming right now. So I'm in my office, but you could probably hear them. Sam, give us your parsonage experience.
Well, I was in a parsonage in Mississippi when I was a student there. And
a student.
He was the student's student, if you know what I mean. 19-year-old student pastor.
But it was like 100 feet from the church, like, from the church office door or whatever. So
you had to cross a major highway, though. That was like
that's not true. No.
That was a 4-lane serious highway.
No, that's a lie. Like, and I still drove to work. I still drove over there. Yeah, because in my deep insecurity, I wanted people to know that I was at work. Like that.
They gotta see your car at the church.
I'm at the office here, and it's just easier. Whatever. But
I'm making fun of you for that one.
That's fine. Make fun of my wounds. I had a blast because I was lonely. I was single. I was lonely, so it was great. Like anytime someone was around, I could just be like, "Well, hello, I'm right here." I liked it for the most part. That's what I loved the most about it, was that I was just in proximity to my community, because that's who I had, was those people. So I was like kind of always accessible, and I liked that. Now married with child, I don't know if that would be as I don't know if I'd say I'd love that as much now, where it's like you're kind of always accessible. But it was also sweet, like, because people just felt like they could just come by, and like it never, like, very rarely did it feel like an inconvenience. You were just kind of there to be truly like in the community. It was funny so we had 2 parsonages at that church. There were 2. There's one for like the senior pastor, and then one for the youth person. So I was in the youth pastor parsonage, and when the senior pastor like left, they were like, "Do you want to move to the other parsonage?" Like the bigger.
Oh my gosh!
I was like, "No, I'm cool. I'm fine."
That's
but that
awesome.
one,
and they
had,
were like next door to each other, right?
Yeah, they're like right next door to each other. So
across the street from the church.
Across the street from the church.
Were they old? Like, were they original?
I mean, they were probably built in the 60s. Okay. That's a guess based on knowledge that is probably inaccurate. But one of them maybe, this is not relevant. One was probably built in this. I think the newer one, the pastor one, was probably a little bit newer. Maybe, whatever. It's not important. None of you guys care about that. But yeah, so that was just a funny thing. So I'm pro parsonage. I think I'm pretty pro parsonage. I like the like living in community that you're ministering in. But yeah, pro parsonage, David.
Go ahead, Noah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you first, and then I'll go. You're good.
When I lived in Homestead, there was an arrangement too that basically made it possible for me to afford to live there, and that our church rented a house and then subleased each of the rooms to people from the church.
Talk about the Miami church plant thing. Remember they had like a condo or something? What was that?
Oh, yes.
You gotta mention that.
So anyway, let me just finish the Homestead thing. So I was able to pay $600 a month in a community that like didn't have anything for under $1,500, Wow. And so that was just a huge gift to me to like be able to live there. And I'm thankful that the church like had that arrangement. There was a church in downtown Miami. So downtown Miami's all high rises now, and so many people who live there are like foreign investors or like second home for oligarchs, that sort of thing. But this church that was doing a replant downtown in a historic building. They owned 2 condos. And so they were offering to the church staff there to live downtown in those high-rise luxury condos for free for being on staff.
No way.
Yeah, that was really tempting and cool to me because, I mean, I would never be able to afford to live in that neighborhood. But
I would do it for a week at least.
Yeah, like the fact that they were offering to church staff like to actually be able to live amongst, these wealthy people that they were trying to reach. I thought that was really good. So that brings us just to our next question of like, why do so few churches these days like do the parsonage anymore? It seems like it's really gone out of style. And like it really was kind of an old-timey thing that was really important to offer pastors, and now they generally just do the housing allowance. At least that's my perception. Like, why aren't we doing it anymore? And like, is there still like a great benefit in doing it?
This is all anecdotal, I think, for me at least, but like the only churches that are building, new building are like building campuses. I'd feel, like they're like larger suburban kind of settings where because I think back to 100 years ago or so, maybe not that old, but a while ago, when you're building a church in a neighborhood and you're also able to build a home there or something. Like I think about the mega church we grew up at, Noah. Like it'd be weird if there was like I don't know if it'd be weird, but they just don't have like
a house housing on the campus.
Yeah, housing for staff there. Yeah, I don't know. It's also, this is interesting. I think it's a shift in like almost fundamentally, on like, how people think about ministry. Because I really felt like when I was in that parsonage, I was like here for this community. Like I am here, planted here. And it's just so you're with the people, you understand how the little nuances of the community work because you're in it. And I think you lose some of that if you're commuting, especially if you're living like a half an hour away or 20 minutes away. I don't know. Like if you're kind of coming in to do the work and then leaving, it's just different. I'm pro-parsonage. I just don't know if like the North American church landscape lends itself to people being able to like build new church. I don't know. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's partially, we're moving away from, circuit riders, itinerant system, right, where you're working for the company. And so the company provides the housing. So I think that's probably a big reason we've moved away from it. And like, mainline denominational pastors, there's more of that company allegiance versus like non-denominational, you need the equity because you have to go and provide your home and buy it. And so,
yeah,
I think that's part of it. I think another one, and this is a pro and con to it. So my dad also grew up in a parsonage, and this was a bad parsonage in the sense of the church was in the basement. And so again, no separation. And, there's pros and cons to the parsonage being right next to the church, right? So I think of a story, one that always sticks out to me was when I was in high school, a drunk guy comes and knocks on the door and asks my dad to give him a ride home because he's not been making good choices, right? And this was a moment my dad got to minister to him, and I got to come along and drive my dad back. And like that wouldn't have happened if we just lived in some random neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Or even there was a time that some people came to Upland looking for Sammy Morris, and they found their way to our house.
The person or the building?
The graveyard for the person. The grave.
Oh, wow.
And they were from Liberia, and they were looking for him. And because of the parsonage, right, it allowed that.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, right, you don't ever get away from work, and your family can quickly go away. And my dad will tell stories about when growing up, my grandpa's parsons, or my grandpa as a pastor, his parishioners would often take priority over his family. And so I think there's been a rise in probably the last 30 years where pastors have said, hey, like, I appreciate this and whatever, but my family needs to be my first ministry, and we need some boundaries and some barriers. And by having the parsonage right here makes it so that I'm always on, and people will know when I'm home and know when I'm not home.
Mm-hmm.
And it can create undue stress for my family, and it helps, or it hurts that fishbowl mentality. And so would you provide a parson somewhere else? And then that's when it just becomes easier for the church to just move towards a housing allowance. And so it's a natural succession, I see, of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Noah, do you think we should have parsonages?
I think that when churches are planting these days, that's not the thing that comes to top of mind. Like, we're a new church and we're meeting in a school and someday we'll buy a building. I don't think that often, like, let's buy a house for our pastor for posterity is part of that long-term plan. But I think it should be. Like, I think the housing allowance is great, and churches are able to give housing allowance to more ministers than just the one pastor. Like, I get a housing allowance from our church, which is a huge blessing for my taxes. But it's also like, the church wouldn't own 5 houses, and I wouldn't be able to get one of them, right? Like, it wouldn't work that way. So the housing allowance does, like, allow you to give it to more people. But I think that like, owning a house in the community that's for the church leadership to be invested in the community is a really good thing for young churches to be thinking about. And it's part of, like, what, I don't know, has kept, like, some permanence and stability of churches that last like 100 years.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes our church plants are not thinking about 100 years from now and are just kind of like thinking about 10 years. And like, it'd be good for us as we build institutions to be thinking of the long-term institutions.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Church planners, go buy houses and then
buy the land.
Or invest in property. Yeah.
Aluminum siding.
And it's like, I don't know. It's not easy. Like, this, the work of the ministry is hard. And like, being a pastor is hard. And like, I think that's all, but it's like, I do think part of the call is to be, counted among the sheep, right? Like, to be like very familiar with the community that you're serving. And maybe you don't have to be in a parsonage to do that. I think I'm just advocating mostly for, like, if you're serving in a context or neighborhood, to like, there's a lot of value in living there and being very familiar with it. If that's not at the church thing, like, I just think churches, like, I've seen it, I'm experiencing it in, not at my church, but like in some other areas of my life where I'm seeing that, like, oh, if you're not really invested here because you're not really, you're just commuting to this thing. And that's not my church right now. I've just seen that happen, but yeah, we're pro-parsonage. That's our hot take for 2026.
Pay your pastors well by giving them a place to live.
Yeah.
But if you give them a house, does that not allow them the opportunity to build equity to buy a house for themselves someday?
It's true.
Like, was that?
But they can also just save the money and buy a house later. Put it in a growth stock mutual fund, and then by the time they retire, if they're investing their money properly, they'll have enough to do a sizable down payment.
That's true. If you haven't had to pay a mortgage all those years, hopefully you've been saving.
Yeah. Or it gives them or they could buy some sort of lake house or some sort of other home. And then when they need to be off the clock, they're allowed to go do that or something.
Yeah. Maybe buy a cheap house in the town that you live in so that when you want to get away from your students.
Oh yeah. Maybe something like that. Oh, what? Yeah.
Wait,
maybe.
Are the students listening to this right now?
I love you. all of you Sammy boys who are listening, I love you to pieces.
Bro,
Now
your
go
house
to
is
bed.
basically your house is basically a parsonage. You're actually it's so close still. It's like 3 minutes. But all right, we're encroaching on a normal episode, not a bonus episode, so we probably should wrap this up before it just...
Well, thank you guys so much for talking about parsonages. And anyone who has questions for us, staircasepod@gmail.com.
Love you.
Okay, bye.